There's been lots of coverage of this project over the last year, and it's likely to continue. This project was first identified for an inspection soon after the RABAC powers came into play in 2021, and this project was due to complete shortly after that. You can see what's happened along the way since. It's really quite alarming. First impression of this job was to discover in the basement that 3 entire floors where flat plastic formwork had been used had been improperly filled, and the grinders were in removing it and setting up to put another layer of reinforcement in to actually compensate for the wall that was no longer functional. But just a few things to point out. Look at the sprinkler pipes covered in cement. Look at the props not using proprietary pins. Really, this showed the signs of everything that is to follow in this presentation. Fire stairs, pump rooms, really bodgy attempts to try and make things right. In the early days, this was back in September, October 21, I had hoped that this project had some prospect of becoming a serious contender to be remediated, but as time goes on, it looks more challenging as we proceed. You can see that each subsequent inspection presented a new set of challenges, with shotcrete not really working all that well and additional columns being required, substantial backpropping. The bottom right hand picture actually shows the situation under the fire tank where the slab was deemed not strong enough to carry the load. Every time we've been back to this building, there's been additional strengthening required, columns not big enough to carry the loads, additional thickening required on the core, services really all over the place, and monitoring in place just to see that everything was hanging in all right. Again, you can see here the massive amounts of retrospective remediation in the basement that's been required. At that particular point in time, it was estimated that the cost of those works to date were about 15 million. And the work continues in the basement. In fact, this is a more recent photograph just showing how the cracking in the basement slabs are being dealt with. But more recently, the work has moved on to identifying new and unknown risks in the tower. And you can see here that in fact everywhere there's massive reinforcement going on to compensate post-tensioning ducts that have never been filled, inadequate post-tensioning, and of course the wrong location of shear and bending moment infrastructure. Here you can see in the middle, in fact the bottom of this slide is an attempt to start to connect the stairs to the core. The entire stairs weren't connected to the core, so they're going to have to be retrofitted, and the props on the left hand side are there just to temporarily hold the load. But just have a look at the massive amount of exotic reinforcement and cables that are being required to be put in here. Carbon fibre, quite an exotic attempt to make good, and holes everywhere where they've had to dig down and actually discover where the post-tensioning was, and the fact that it wasn't reinforced or it wasn't grouted. And you can see that this is what owners who would have potentially settled on that building in December 21 would have had to experience in the post-occupation phase, where you can now see those marks on the carpet identifying where the post-tension ducts are underneath the carpet, and then having to go underneath the building and repair them. More recently, we've opened up bathrooms and started to look at what might be there for future leaks in the bathroom. You can see that in fact the entire tiling arrangements are unsatisfactory, and further work to be done there. Further investigations on the balconies, glass that didn't have code mark on the handrails. While it appeared that the threshold arrangements at the door might have been satisfactory, when you peeled the skin back on the cladding on the balcony, you can see that in fact the upturns were lower than the balcony, which had no overflows on them at all. Really, this is a nightmare of a project, and the Mercury really did cover it quite well, saying that the challenge here is, how will this building ever achieve a situation where it can have an occupation certificate and a future building commissioner will be able to lift a prohibition order?